Hi, I'm Heather O'Keefe with Egon Zehnder. I'm a partner in our board and CEO succession practice. And last week I attended a panel discussion in Austin on the directors table on the topic on good governance. We talked a lot about succession planning, both at the board and CEO levels. And some of the questions and conversations that came up were around the areas of when, who, and how to conduct good succession planning. At both the board and CEO level, I always recommend getting on an annual cadence, regularly and always thinking about succession. And the question came up of, will you appoint a new CEO? When should you start CEO succession? And our advice is the day they start. You can never start too early. You have to have a backup contingency plan in case something unexpected happens. And that's true on the board side as well. We recommend having succession planning and pipeline discussions as part of your regular annual board process and cadence. In terms of who, there are a few people who could lead the process on both the board and the executive side. The non-gov committee chair would typically lead the CEO succession process. Sometimes the chairman of the board can do it if the chair is independent, and if not, the lead independent director can sometimes lead the process. In terms of board recruitment and board succession, again, it could be either the non-gov chair or the board chair or the lead independent director. In any case, those people are always important constituents and engaged in the process. Also involved in the process when it comes to board succession and board recruitment is, of course, the CEO. Board candidates will want to meet the CEO, and the CEO will want to meet potential board candidates, and then other members of the NomGov committee and any other members of the board who are important constituents in the process, depending on the structure of your board and how you like to engage. When it comes to the how of succession planning, most boards are familiar with what that looks like on an executive level, and it's part of what you do as part of your normal annual cadence. But most boards, frankly, aren't great about doing it themselves and building a routine, a consistent routine. So what we recommend, again, is an annual process with self-evaluations of how the board is performing as a group and peer evaluations and feedback for each other. What's important in grounding for that evaluation is a written description of the purposes of the committee, the charters of the committee, and what the expectations of each board member are, so that you have an objective benchmark upon which to evaluate individual and team performance. With that, usually the NomGov chair, sometimes the board chair or lead independent director will lead that annual process. And we recommend at least every 3 years engaging an independent third-party advisory firm who can help you lead the process. And that's important for a couple of reasons. The first is that they're able to typically go deeper and more objectively because they don't work with the rest of the board regularly. But it's also important because they see lots of other companies and lots of other boardrooms and have a good sense of the range of ways of operating, the range of performance, and really what best in class and good looks like across a variety of industries and boardrooms. One of the other questions that came up is around how to give difficult feedback and how to have difficult conversations in the boardroom. It's again the kind of thing that we may be used to from our executive careers, giving difficult feedback to our teams. But once we enter the boardroom, it can be really, really hard to give feedback to peers. So some of the ways we talked about in the panel last week included, first, this is another reason why having an annual board review is really important. Once you get into a regular rhythm and cadence of delivering and receiving feedback, it's not as awkward. It feels a lot more comfortable when it's just part of how we do things here. Second, this can be another valuable use of an independent third-party resource and ask someone else to deliver the difficult messages, again, within context of what they've seen at other boards and with other directors. And then finally, if you have an objective definition of the role of the board, the role of each committee and committee leader, then you have something to go back to share directly and objectively how each individual board member's performance is stacking up relative to expectations. The final area that came through or question that was asked during the panel was around perspectives on term limits and potentially even age limits on boards. And there are differing points of view on this. In some jurisdictions, of course, term limits are required, and because beyond a certain number of years, 10, for example, one is not viewed as independent. Um, Personally, I think that's a nice approach as well, engaging a term limit with the option of exceptions. There are excellent directors who can serve in an independent capacity beyond a defined term limit, but having that in place can be really helpful because, again, after a certain point, are you really independent? And that also helps to encourage refreshment on the board to continue to bring in new skills, capabilities, and experiences as the company's strategy evolves. I hope this helps, and I hope to meet all of you at a future event with NACD. Thank you.